right, fellas, I do want to come in and say, hey, it's game week. It's time to focus. It's time to do our thing. But when my hair looks like this, it's pretty hard to come through and say, hey, fellas, it's game week. Let's focus. We got the first game of the season, the quest for three-peat, and not address this. The people who listen to Daily Fix every day saw us unveil this. The Kansas City Royals screwed me. They were playing the Astros. I naturally made a bet, and this is a bet that I thought I would win. I like when I make bets like this. I thought the bet was simple. The Royals were coming to Houston for a 4-game series. Three of their best pitchers. Brady Singer. I know Serda might know some of these. Brady Singer, Seth Lugo, and what's my man's name? Damn it. Traded from the Rangers. Jesus.
Cole Reagans.
Yeah, Cole Reagans. They were pitching three of
you knew, sir. There was no chance Serda was throwing you a lifeline.
Yeah, I knew he would. Yeah. I was not looking at you.
That was Cole like Reagans. Jumping into the ocean and asking him to throw you the last lifeboat that is on the ship. No chance. He's shaking. Gonna do
no
that.
Chance. No, and Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo are legit Cy Young candidates this year.
Yeah.
And the bet was simply this with a guy of mine. Hey, if one of the teams gets swept, if your team gets swept, you got to dye your hair blonde. I'm like, 4 games. Nah, I ain't going to get swept. I mean, the Royals lead the league in sweeps. So, I mean, if it happens that way. And I was there for it live and in color on Sunday. And I watched it. The final game happened to me. And
didn't go great, man. Didn't go great.
No, it didn't. And
how you feeling about it? How do you feel about the blonde? Is it?
I don't like it. There are many people. It doesn't look that bad. I look like, what's his name? Simon Phoenix, the Wesley Snipes from Demolition Man. That's where we're at right now. I don't love it. It's not my
call.
Yeah, I know
his was a little cleaner though. Yours is awfully patchy.
Thanks. You could have just said. You could have just said. You could have said patchy.
Did you go somewhere?
Yeah, she did it. And my favorite part is this. You could tell she really got good on a finger here, right there, like a thumb. Yeah. Like she went in there to rub that one in, and it just kind of lays down right there.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I'm gonna go to the barber at some point to get this thing cleaned up. But
I don't know how much they can do for that, man.
I mean, they could just line it up to make it a little bit better and taper up the sides, so it don't look as bad. But yeah, it's that's not my look. There are people. Oh man, that's your look. You should shut up.
I thought you were like getting in your like Joe Burrow vibes. I didn't know if this was your way of coming out and be like, listen, guys, you know I'm a Chiefs fan, but I think this is the year of Joe Burrow. I'm afraid of the Bengals. Like I'm pulling a page out of BK's book. I didn't know where we were going with this, so no. I'm happy to hear that there's a specific reason with a bet.
Yeah, this is just because everyone on the Royals sucked. I mean, it was a house of horrors. Good God. I mean, I just don't even want to talk about it. I'm so angry about it that I had to do this. But whatever. I'm a man of my word. I live up to my bets. But it is game week. And the Chiefs have a game. We're doing this on Wednesday. The Chiefs have a game on Thursday, tomorrow. And this is the first one. And these are important games. And last year they were playing the Lions in the NFC. And hey, you want to win it, but if you lost it, it's an NFC. This one is a team that you may be battling for the number 1 seed, and there's only one bye week. And generally, how important that is for teams. And you play one game. If you win it, you're in the AFC Championship game. That's something that the Chiefs have been able to do for years. But you only got one, and they play the Ravens and the Bengals right out the gate. And you know what this sets up for me, fellas? This sets up for me what the most frustrating thing there is in this dynasty. I mean, the Chiefs have made my life 3 Super Bowls, They've been to 6 straight AFC Championship games. They hosted 5 of them. I could have never dreamed that we would have the guy that everybody hates because he keeps stopping people from winning. I would have never dreamed that. But the thing that frustrates me the most about this dynasty is I never know how much they care to win certain games. Like us, like for me, I look at this and I'm thinking, yo, they came out there and that offense was awful at times to watch last year. We've heard Patrick Mahomes say it. It wasn't fun playing last year. And they barely beat the Ravens. And yes, they won a Super Bowl, but it wasn't, the best looking version of this team. They're new and now they're 3-point favorites in the game, which basically is a push them because they're at home and they're getting 3 points, which I think is disrespectful. Check the Daily Fix. I said that earlier today. You would look at this and you would think, yeah, they want to sit. I heard Chase Daniel say this earlier this week on an awful new show that he's on. I heard him and he said,
whoa.
It is, man. The facility. I'm sorry. I know it's early. It's awful. I'm sorry, Chase. I know, and Chase, and he's doing the best he can, and I've gotten over the Missouri thing, kind of like I have with Nick, but it is. It's awful. It really is. They got to go back to the drawing board on that show. I'm sorry, but I heard him say earlier this week, yeah, the Chiefs are out here to prove something, and I'm thinking to myself, which Chiefs? When are the Chiefs out to prove something except for January? It's the only time they really thoroughly give a damn about games. They don't always come in focused. They don't always. And to me, I want to see them send a message to the league. They just don't seem to operate that way ever. They just seem to operate, which is probably smart. But, hey, it's a 17-game season, whatever. Yoo-hoo, whatever. Hey, we won 11 games. We won whatever. They seem like they have become the Spurs. The Spurs didn't give a damn what their seeding was. They'd be a fifth, a sixth. It doesn't matter. But so for me, I want them to send a message, but I just don't know how much they really give a rip about winning this game.
We also know how Andy treats these games specifically. Like, Andy really cares about divisional games. Andy really wants to send a message. Hey, the AFC West is ours for the taking. Nobody else will even sniff it, right? When they go up against an AFC West opponent, other than the Raiders for some reason, they dominate more often than not. Against non-divisional AFC opponents that make the playoffs, that has been their Achilles heel over the last 3 years. They are 3-6 in those games. Their 3 wins came against Pittsburgh, which was a fake playoff team, Jacksonville, who needed a heroic effort in the postseason to be able to beat that Chargers team, and then last year against the Miami Dolphins when they played them overseas. That's it. Those are the only 3 wins against non-divisional AFC playoff opponents during the regular season over the last 3 years. So they don't typically put their best stuff on tape in these games. And I think the reason why is pretty simple. They think they're going to see these teams in the playoffs. So Andy holds stuff back, right? We know he does this. It's happened for years and it works because they get to the postseason. They've got to change up to whatever they did against these teams during the regular season. You see them throw that during the playoffs and then boom, they're going to the Super Bowl. So it's hard to get mad at the Chiefs for the way that they treat these games, because it's worked for them. But it is so unbelievably frustrating as you're watching and you're like, yo, this is not your A stuff, Andy. Can you please throw it out there? And the same thing is true for Spags. Spags is going to come out and it's going to be incredibly frustrating because he's going to come out with more vanilla game plans than what you're used to. He's not going to give the A+ blitz schemes. He's not going to go out there and have, like last year, L'Jarius Sneed, how he was following number 1 receivers. I don't think you're going to see that early on with Trent McDuffie. So I think, Ron, it's every bit as likely after 2 weeks that we're talking about an 0-2 Chiefs team as it is that we talk about them like blowing these 2 teams out. Not expecting it, but that's the way that they treat these kinds of games typically.
Well, sort of to answer what he said real quick, Steve, it is easy to get upset about it. I know they've won, but it is easy to get upset with the thing because I agree with you. Andy and Spags most definitely hold back what they're doing, but the players' intensity level is not anywhere near sometimes the other team. And the worst part about it is sometimes they get away with it and win, even against good teams when they're not even at all matching their level of intensity. Like, I don't even know that they have even cared sometimes about Buffalo games. Like, the Buffalo gets them all the time in the regular season. Games that we all think is, all right, this is a big one. They're going to, like, Sunday Night Football doesn't faze them. Monday night doesn't faze them. None of it. It does not faze it. Whether it is Buffalo, it's Baltimore's been a bit more of a challenge for them. That first year, they wanted to beat the brakes off everybody, especially if they were on live TV. But other than that, now they're like, all right, man, we're gonna go ahead and just do this. We're gonna do our thing. Let's just chill, man. Whatever. We'll do what we do. And I just want one time. I just want them to say, we're gonna stick our foot on somebody's throat. I know you didn't know where that was going, and I'll be frank with you, I didn't either. But I just want them to do that one time. And because I'm telling you, Baltimore's rolling in here with a certain level of intensity. I mean, I can see it all over Roquan Smith's face. They're rolling in here with a certain intensity, but you just don't know what the Chiefs. And then now a team may piss the Chiefs off, and then you may see them turn it up. But I just don't know how much they care about this game.
I agree. And we've spent way too much time over the last several years watching this team just play down to their opponents. Now, maybe it's, banner opening night, back-to-back Super Bowl champions. You're trying to go on a three-peat and make NFL history. Like, maybe there is really something to that they care about. I tend to believe that there's not, because I think that they know, like, we just got to get to the playoffs. And if we get to the playoffs, we can beat anybody and we can go win another Super Bowl. And that's the way they've managed this thing over the last several years. So I'm not falling for that again. Like, I could totally see them just not look very good in this game against Baltimore. But also, I think even last year in a game against the Detroit Lions, who went to the NFC Championship game where the Chiefs didn't look particularly good, and that was an offense that was totally non-functional. Like, it still took multiple dramatic mistakes for the Chiefs to lose that football game. And at the end of the day, even if we have questions about the Chiefs defense, I'm still not totally sold that Baltimore is going to come out and drop like 35 points on that Chiefs defense or something like that. So I still think it's going to be a close game, but I certainly don't think that the Chiefs are going to come out and just smack the Ravens in the mouth and drop 40 points on them or something like that.
No, they don't feel like they need to.
That being said, there is one time all year where Andy typically does that, and it's week 1. If he's going to do it in this kind of a game, it is to open up the season. Ron, since 2015, the Chiefs are 8-1 in the opener of this season. And in those games, outside of last year where they scored 21, that was a weird game. Chris Jones was like sitting up with his agent. Travis Kelce didn't play. Just a lot of weird stuff going. They didn't have receivers that knew how to catch the football. It was bad vibes.
Before that, Kadarius alone. Jesus, man.
Thank God he's gone. All right. 44 points against Arizona, 33 against Cleveland, 34 against Houston, 40 against Jacksonville, 38 against the Chargers, 42 against New England, and then 33 against San Diego. They put up big-time offensive numbers typically in week 1 of the season because Andy is unafraid to bring something new out. So typically, if they're going to have one of these kinds of games against this type of an opponent, it happens in the opener of the season. So it does build some anticipation in that regard, because last year they didn't have the answers. I will be curious to see if maybe they treat it a little bit differently because it is the first game of the season. And that, generally speaking, has been a spot where Andy brings out some good stuff.
Yeah, I just think about the way they came out against the Ravens, against all the teams in the playoffs. The way they came out to start games. You remember how, I thought Travis might get ejected, as much trash as he was talking and fights he was starting at the beginning of that game. They're not going to come out anywhere near that intensity. No, nowhere near it. Like they never pull that out until they have to. And so we'll see. I hope I am wrong. And I hope that we see a team that comes out and especially Patrick Mahomes says, yo, People think that we can't put up numbers the way we used to. To hell with that. Let's go out here and drop half 100 on these nuts, and let's send a message to the league. I hope that's the mindset. I doubt it is.
I hope it's similar. Do you guys remember that 2021 game against Baltimore? It was week 2, and the Chiefs got up big in that game. In their first 6 drives, they had an interception for a touchdown. They had a pick 6 on like the first drive of the game.
Tyrann Mathieu got one. Yeah.
After that, their next 6 drives, they scored 5 touchdowns, and they were up 35-24, like midway through the third quarter.
Mahomes throws a really bad pick.
They blew it. They absolutely blew it. The offense imploded. They throw an interception, punt, and then fumble. Boom, game's over. Ravens win. They won that one 36-35. But like that kind of offensive performance is what I'm hoping for in this one, where obviously not the finish, but the start where it just comes out. And I remember thinking at the time, I thought that was one of the best opening scripts I've ever seen from Andy Reid. He was just his best stuff. Bap, 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 just right off of the top. And I hope, and even if I fear that we won't, I hope that we get to see something like that against this Ravens team.
I enjoyed that bat, 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 bat. That really done me in. That bat, 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 bat. Come on, give me that bat, 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 bat. I like that, baby. I like that. Let's hit it. If you're new to this podcast, shout out to Foolish Club Media. We still do the same thing as we always do on Show and BK. When the Chiefs have the ball and when the Ravens have the ball. Let's start when the Chiefs have the ball. BK, what are you looking at? What's the number one thing that's on your mind when the Chiefs have the ball in this game coming up against the Ravens?
It's kind of wild, man. We have arrived at opening weekend. It's just not even a story. Like most fans just aren't even talking about. You have a starting left tackle that was a second-round pick this year. A rookie, and he's protecting the most important person in professional football. And he's going out there against a defense that is going to throw some stuff at you, that's going to confuse a rookie offensive lineman. And people don't seem to be talking about it because it's been a foregone conclusion for like 6 weeks that Kingsley Suamataia is going to be your starting left tackle. So my biggest question going into this game, what does he look like? And what is the other rookie? Your headliner from this year's draft, Xavier Worthy. Those two guys, Worthy, Suamataia, what do they look like in a game where they're going up against one of the best defenses in the NFL with legit talent? Like the corners that Xavier Worthy is going up against in this game are physical as hell, dude. He's going to get a bunch of Marlon Humphrey, I would imagine, in this one. He's just going to try to press him off the line of scrimmage all day long. How's he reacts to that, So that's one thing I'm looking for. And then Kingsley going up against a defense that's going to throw people at you from all different angles. I think it's the single biggest storyline going into this one, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
I love the matchup, though. For Kingsley especially, he's not opening up against Max Crosby, like somebody really dominant. I mean, they've got, like you said, they may scheme some stuff more. Although, who's the coordinator there now? I know McDonald took over in Seattle, but I can't remember.
Guy by the name of Zach Orr. I'm not super familiar with his work, but dude, you know what they're going to run in Baltimore. They're going to run a bunch of stuff where they're confusing the hell out of you. They're going to blitz like crazy. Like they're going to be super aggressive.
Nobody should be familiar with Jack Orr's work yet. But anywho, but this isn't like, he does, like even next week, it's going to be Trey Hendrickson, who is a really bona fide pass rusher in this league with a bunch of different things. I think this will be a good start for Kingsley and should be able to kind of handle things, because Kyle Van Noy he's a good veteran pass rusher, but this isn't Myles Garrett that you're dealing with. So I like that part of it. And you're right, Xavier Worthy, I'm telling you, I'm intrigued because I certainly believe Andy has some real plans and ideas and different ways he wants to get him the ball. And I think that's the first thing I want to see. And this will kind of coincide to what I want to talk about a little bit, what I'm thinking about. But how does Xavier Worthy affect the game? How does he affect the game? And I don't like, you don't want to go to the Tyreek Hill comparison at all, but the speed that he has can affect the game when him not even catching the ball. How does his presence and his speed and that, even though he is the skinniest guy that can't probably hold up to many people on the field, his skill set is extremely frightening for defenses because he can hit his head on the goalpost and have big plays all day long, and you cannot walk away from it. You have to account for it. And to the point you guys have made in the past, this ain't no MVS or McCole Hardman, who you don't know if he can track the ball well enough, or if you know where he's going to go to the right spot, or if he can catch it. This cat has shown he can track the ball and go get it and catch it with his hands and make big plays from multiple ways. So that's a big thing to kind of set up for the rest of the year of what and how he affects the offense.
Zach Orr, by the way, had been on the Ravens coaching staff the last couple of years.
Yeah, good for Zach. Good for him.
Pretty much same system.
Nobody needed you to go look up
there
the research on Zach Orr.
Yeah.
Nobody linebacker
very familiar with the Baltimore Ravens.
You just wasted that Google search.
But yeah, I agree with you on Xavier Worthy. And really, for me, it's like I mentioned the other day on the Daily Fix, like, I just want to see it look easy for the offense. Like, for once, like after everything that we went through last season, like, I just want to see some things look easy, and I want it to look explosive and fun again. But also, what I'm going to be interested in too is, like, after the struggles of last season, after this offseason and all the hype around Worthy and Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice year number 2 and this new offense, and like it's finally explosive and Mahomes has the deep ball again, like is that going to be the case? Or like if the Ravens, like, say they get beat early on a deep ball to Worthy and then they're giving you absolutely nothing down the field the rest of the way, is Mahomes just going to settle for that and do what he did last year and be like, okay, well, I'll just take what you give me and I'll take the easy stuff and we'll just go on long drives and beat you that way until you try to commit, and then we'll go over the top again? Like, is he going to be patient enough, or is he going to be forceful because he wants to create explosives again? Like that, I feel like that's the next step in the evolution of Patrick Mahomes that I hope we see in week 1.
Zach Orr, Terry and Rita Orr's kid. He went to North Texas undrafted. Zach Orr did play for the Ravens. You guys are correct. Good guy as well. I'll be frank with you. Not what I thought Zach Orr was going to look like, but you're surprised.
What do you mean by
all
that,
the time. I'm sorry. That's not what I expected from Big Zach Orr. But good for him. All pro in 2016. So Zach Orr, really nice guy as well.
He was born with a back condition, Ron.
That's right.
He had a rare spinal condition.
Yeah. Yep. Hard not to root for Zach Orr overcoming adversity.
But sure it is. I'm not.
But on Thursday night, of course, very much not going to be rooting for him.
Rita Orr and Terry Orr, former, and he's got the pedigree, guys. If you're scoring at home, his father's a former tight end for the Washington R's. So good for him. Played his heart out.
Yeah, his youngest brother currently plays for the New Jersey Generals of the USFL. I think that league is since defunct. But I
was going to say, I didn't think the Generals still existed.
Hey,
so good for him.
It's all good, man.
Shout out to North Texas, DeSoto, Texas, Dallas area.
Oh, no.
Kid.
Now he's a linebackers coach at Jackson State. So now you know everything you need to know about the Orr family.
About the Orr family. Let's give Zach a hand. Good job, Zach. Keep pushing, Zach.
Good work. Good work.
Keep pushing. Hey, in this game, as we're still doing when the Chiefs have the ball, as all this Worthy talk happened, this is going to be a Rashee Rice game. I can feel it in my loins. This is going to be a Rashee Rice game.
Right there.
It just makes sense because when they come into the game, and BK finally came along with us, but when they come into the game, still, what Zach Orr, Terry and Rita Orr's kid is doing in film session and game plan is we've got to stop 87. I mean, with the Chiefs still to this day, that is the deal because it is who Pat goes to. It is who Pat goes to when he's in trouble. It is to stop 87. And when they do that, and then you combine, as we just talked about Worthy, and that's why I said I want to see how he impacts the game. You get that nut just lined up, threatening to be screaming down the field. You have to do something with that. You can't. I mean, the safety's first move has to be steps back. You have to account for that because he will beat you over the top. You cannot allow him to get going with that speed. So when you have somebody that scares you to go deep and a quarterback that you know can get it there, and the tight end that you are focusing on, that leaves Rashee Rice, who secretly might be the most talented and the best of all of them. That leaves Rashee Rice in a lot of coverages where he has the advantage. And he's playing, and we saw last year one of the great things he picked up early was playing off of Travis Kelce. And they would both be in the middle of the field and they would play off of each other really, really well. This feels like a 10-plus target game to me for Rashee Rice. And I can see him being the one that is just, I mean, he's going to beat guys and he breaks a tackle and that's a chunk play. I see tonight, even though I got to be honest with you, I'm surprised that he's playing. You would not have convinced me of that 2 months ago, but I think this is a big Rashee Rice game.
I think it's going to be a monster Rashee Rice season for all of this, all of the things you just said. Like, I think so many people are so excited about Worthy and excited about Hollywood Brown, and they should be, man. The effects, I love the way you phrase that. Like, what effect are they going to have on the game? In this one, Worthy, I expect, like, not anticipate, I expect one big play out of him. I don't know what it'll be. I don't know how it'll happen, but I expect that there will be at least one big play for him. And as a defense, once you feel that speed get up on you the way that it's going to, it changes the way you have to play on him. You can't manufacture that in practice. You've got to feel it in a game, and it's going to be different for every single guy that's in that secondary for the Baltimore Ravens, especially because, like, dude, they just played against this team in the postseason. They knew what it felt like to play against the Chiefs last year, and you didn't have to fear their deep speed. It was one of the biggest issues with the Chiefs offense a year ago is they had nobody that threatened you deep. It was Rashee across the middle. It was Kelce across the middle, and there was nothing going over the top. And this year, now that you have that threat, it opens up so much for Rashee Rice. And so to me, like, I think he's going to have a monster game. I think he's going to have a monster season. I've been taking him in all of my different fantasy leagues. Like, I think it's going to be the perfect kind of offense to be able to get the most out of that specific skill set on the Chiefs.
Serda, he is going to kill them on crossers. I mean, you could just see Worthy and Hollywood's not even there yet. Worthy just screaming down the field and running all the coverage off with Rashee Rice coming across the field in that same space he vacated. He is going to kill them on drag routes.
And I talked about it all off season. I know it was easy to kind of, Rashee Rice off the field issues. Is he going to get suspended? Is he not going to get suspended? And I feel like we're at the point now where we feel pretty good that's probably not going to happen this season. And so you're banking on him being available throughout the entirety of the regular season. But I feel like because of that story and everything that was going on there, it's just been overlooked that throughout training camp, it was like day after day, Patrick Mahomes to Rashee Rice, big play to Rashee Rice running more than just crossing routes. But I know that's where he can excel at because he is a yak monster and supposedly he's faster and in better shape this year. I just feel like it's still slightly being overlooked how big of a season Rashee Rice could have for the Chiefs offense. Like, I legitimately think that he is going to be outside of Travis Kelce and maybe even with Travis Kelce, like their high volume target earner with Hollywood and Xavier Worthy peppered in with some explosive plays. Like, I just think that Rashee Rice proved last season that he is reliable in what they ask him to do. And if he can expand on his game this season, like, this offense could be dominant again.
This wasn't something we planned on talking about, but I'm curious. How do you think last year is going to influence the way that Chiefs fans watch this offense moving forward? Because That's not something we've ever experienced before. It wasn't fun to watch the Chiefs play offense. For a large portion of the season, we hated watching them play offense. And they finished the year like middle of the pack in scoring. The passing offense never really felt right until you got to the postseason. How do you think watching that over the course of a season, Ron, will influence how we evaluate them this year on a week-to-week basis?
I think a couple of things. One, like I don't think it's going to be all of a sudden for many people of, hey, yes, look what they're doing. I think because Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, there's an expectation that they have a great offense, which I think is fair. And I think it would just take a week or two for them to flush all of that garbage from last year and then continue to look at this team with the expectations they've always had for them when those two have been together. It's not. This hasn't gone on for a 2 or 3 year period where they have just turned into, hey, we're going to go ball control and kick a bunch of field goals and play with our defense. That was 1 year. Now that they have all these new parts, I think people will immediately flush what that garbage was last year, where it seemed like 19 points was their high for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they will eventually get back to the expectations that you would have for an Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes offense.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Like, I just think that there's just too much talent on this offense this year. And there, it's hard for me to even like fathom that they're not going to easily be a top 5 scoring offense again this season.
I agree, but I do think it'll make you appreciate it more. Like, I think there can come a point in time in which you just kind of take it for granted that, hey, the Chiefs are great offensively. They're always going to be great offensively. They've got Patrick Mahomes. They're going to be a top 5 passing offense. Dude, they threw for more than 300 yards twice, all of last season. Twice, 2 times, 3 if you include the entire playoff run where they threw for 325 against the 49ers in the Super Bowl. So I do think as a fan, once you have that kind of an experience with this guy at quarterback, I have to imagine the following season, you're going to start appreciating it and enjoying it a little bit more, as long as it's as good as we're currently anticipating.
Maybe the first week or two, but not week after week, because then like the fans they're not appreciated. They have expectations. We got Patrick Mahomes, damn it. Like you started to appreciate it that you had years of Alex Smith and Tyler Palko or whatever, Matt Castle before that. And then you saw it like, oh my God, I appreciate it. But now these people, we're spoiled. We're spoiled. By the way, real quick, you talked about Xavier Worthy making a big play. That could come from whatever it is Andy has up his sleeve. That could come from whatever weird stuff Andy has that he's been developing, where I don't know if Kelsey's a quarterback in the game and taking snaps, or Blake Bell is the center sneak, or whatever. But Jared, oh God, you're right, man. He's got to have something in there for him. Like I mean, you know, when Andy has all this time on his hands to try to figure things out, he comes up with something. I bet you there's a potential. You talked about Xavier Worthy with a big play. It could be a big play with something that Andy didn't just came up with when the Ravens have the ball. And I think it's still the same thing when you play the Ravens, the first thing you look at is Lamar. But he's got a partner with him now. And now it is that running game. And that's what you looked at, but that running game is a bit different. Lamar and Derrick Henry. This is the first time we get to see those two together. Thank God it is not potentially where Derrick Henry was in his physical prime, or that is a real scary proposition. But that has to be the number one thing for the Chiefs defense and Spags when the Ravens have the ball.
Dude, Derrick Henry is still one of those dudes that just absolutely terrifies me as an opposing fan. Like when that guy was on the Titans, it's why I think he should be a future Hall of Famer, is because there are so few running backs in the league that you can go up against and you're like, man, just stop that guy and you're probably going to be okay. That guy doesn't exist in the 21st century. Like at this point, those guys have been run out of the league, but Derrick Henry does, and he is unbelievable. He's been really good against the Chiefs over his last few opportunities during the regular season against them. The Chiefs typically ramp up their efforts against him in the playoffs, as we remember. I will be curious to see, Ron, what Spags decides to do in this game. Do you take away the element of the run with Lamar? Do you take away the element of the passing game over the top? Like, what is the number one thing that he tries to take away from them? Because typically early in the season, he's not going to really sell out to stop the run. We've seen the Chiefs get run on, especially early in the year, for years under Steve Spagnuolo defensively. So I'm anticipating a pretty big game out of Derrick Henry. The hope is he just doesn't have one of those vaunted like 60-yard runs where he's scampering into the end zone. As long as you avoid that, you should be okay. But this guy still scares the hell out of me, despite him being like 31 years old.
Yeah. It still feels like in Lamar's ability to rip long runs and like the Chiefs trying to cover up that, like it just feels like there's going to be a situation where that leads to a Derrick Henry 65-yard touchdown or something like that. Even though he's not prime Derrick Henry that was like carrying a Tennessee Titans team on his back to the postseason, but he's still really good and he does still scare me. Like he's one of the best running backs of this generation. And like BK said, it just feels like you can see a scenario where, oh, it's week 1, Chiefs give up a bunch of rushing yards. Like we've just seen that over and over again.
Yeah. It's to me, like I'm going into it, and any team that plays the Ravens this year should go into it thinking it like they're going to run the football. Like, they're going to have, moments they're going to run the football. Like, they're probably going to rush for 100, at least 130, 150 yards. But two things. One, do you not prevent repeated chunk, rip your heart out plays? Like, all right, yeah, man, can you at some point get them in third? Like, all right, yeah, Lamar might break off for 8, and then Derrick might have, 9 or whatever. But at some point, can you get them in a 3rd down and 8 and get off the field, or make them kick field goals and not have all these things end in points? And the other big thing to help prevent this run game is this offense for the Chiefs putting up points and forcing them to have to change the game. Now, I have the feel, fellas, I don't know about you, and I've been thinking about it the whole time since they've been on the schedule, that Todd Monken might overcorrect for what he did in the postseason. Right? Then he ran it 6 times or something like that. I think Todd might overdo it and try to say, you know what, here, that's all I heard about all offseason. Watch it. We're getting 40 carries come hell or high water. I don't care what happens. So it's just, can you be good enough? And to be honest, this probably fits our linebacking core better than having to defend, receivers out of the backfield, right? So so this should kind of go towards the Chiefs' strengths. My thing is, this is just like playing Golden State. Like, they're going to hit threes, right? You just can't let them. They can't hit 25. And you can't just let, it just be easy for Clay and Steph when they're in their prime. You got to, can you hold them to 13? Can you make it difficult for them and not just let them run away from you on this thing? Like, yeah, they're going to hit some threes, but can it not be a 15-0 run to, that screws you? That's just my thing is you got to go into it. Like, just like the Chiefs, the Chiefs are going to make chunk plays. The Ravens do. It's just, how do you do it? And can you keep them out of the end zone?
Yeah. And like you look back at, we mentioned the Chiefs give up a lot of rushing yards early in the season. What they've given up rushing yardage wise week 1 in recent years, 120, 105, 150, 120. They gave up 81 to Jacksonville, but Ron, you mentioned like get up on them, and that takes them out of this running game plan. Chiefs were up 40, ended up winning that game 40-26 against the Jags. That's how they took them out of the run. And then 123, 124, 155. Chiefs are going to give up rushing yards. The one way that they can avoid it is by essentially taking Derrick Henry out of the game. And the way you do that is by getting up 2 scores. If you get up by 2 scores, especially in the second half, they will have to change the way that they're trying to go about their offense. But that's the only way you can do it, because otherwise I think you make a really smart point there, Ron, about them deciding, you know what, I can't make the same mistake we did in the offseason or in the postseason. I bet you Todd Monken comes out and you see a pretty heavy dose of Derrick Henry early on in this one. It's a really good point by you.
No, yeah, I've always thought Todd ain't good because that's all he heard: 6 carries, 6 carries, 6 carries. And this, I think for me, the scary thing is tackling the first week. Like, and those two dudes in particular are hard to tackle if you've been consistently tackling, and they have
especially
not.
with a defense run that has not played a lot of snaps together.
No,
like
I mean Chris
that's
Jones
the other
hasn't
thing.
played.
And Justin Reed, like you
Yep.
look at the corner situation, Watson barely played in the preseason as well. You got a lot of dudes on this defense that have not spent a whole lot of time on the field together. That is something that does give me a little bit of pause going into this game defensively, is just like the communication stuff and stuff that they were so good at last season. That was like from day one, just never became an issue for them. I do think you'll see a few breakdowns in this game. You'll probably see it early on in the season, and then they'll just iron that stuff out of this as the season goes along. But I don't expect it to be as seamless as it was last year.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't either. It's just going to be, like I said, man, just expect to be frustrated at times, but it's week one, and these are two very, very talented guys that can play off each other really, really well in Lamar and Derrick Henry. All right, real quick for me, this is outside of that matchup because, yeah, stopping the run with this team is the most important. But outside of that matchup, to me, I am so intrigued to see how Spags plays Trent McDuffie. Trent McDuffie is clearly this team's top player in the secondary in their corner. But they're going against a team where it's not like, hey, when they play the Bengals next week, you got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and you got two guys that play on the outside a lot that you can just throw McDuffie on one of them. This team's two best receiving targets play a lot of the time in the middle of the field, and that is Zay Flowers, who plays a lot out of the slot, who he was matched up on a lot last year in that playoff game because he primarily covered in the slot in McDuffie. And then their tight end, Mark Andrews. And I know the Shamari Connor situation about him being the nickel playing in the slot. To me, I'd be really intrigued to see if Spags maybe puts Connor on Mark Andrews more and then allows McDuffie to actually, I don't know about follow, but be on Zay Flowers a lot, even if that means he's in the slot. Because I don't want to see a scenario in which the Ravens can dictate who is covering Zay Flowers. To me, I don't want to see Trent McDuffie on Nelson Aguilar, or despite this reemergence of Rashad Bateman again in preseason.
Hyping him up all camp.
As much as the hype is on him, I still don't want to see him matched up with Aguilar or Rashad Bateman the whole time while Zay Flowers is against, one of our weaker corners. That to me is something that I don't think is a great recipe, because I think he can really give those guys problems with his quickness. So I'd be really intrigued to see if Spags even says, Trent, you got Zay. We're going to follow. I'm intrigued to see how he deploys Trent McDuffie.
I'm fascinated. I think it's one of the storylines of the year, because you think back to last season, Ron, and do you guys remember which week it was that they first started doing the L'Jarius Sneed follows? Was it against Minnesota?
Minnesota. I remember him doing
Jefferson.
It. Yeah.
I know for sure he did do it in that game. I couldn't remember if he did it prior to or not. I feel like that might have been the first, and that was week 5.
He had done it a little bit at the tail end the season before. Like at the back end of the season, they started having him do it a little bit.
And then maybe against Minnesota, it became like the every week thing. Because from there, basically, it was every week he's going up against whoever the number one receiver is. And I do wonder, do they give Trent McDuffie that kind of ability, that kind of recognition early in the season? Do they just say, hey, listen, Baltimore, you're going up against Zay Flowers. Cincinnati, you're going up against Jamar Chase. Atlanta, you're going up against Drake London. Every week you get the number one dude. New Orleans, you're going up against Chris Olave. because they could really use that. I mean, he's the kind of guy who could follow them wherever they go. It doesn't matter if they're in the slot or outside. He can do it. But it does change some things in terms of what you're able to do schematically. And I don't think Spags always loves having to do that. I also don't love the idea of them having Trent McDuffie out there and the Ravens being able to dictate the matchups where he's stuck, as you said, on Rashad Bateman. And now you've got one of the other guys, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Najee Johnson, whoever it might be.
Shamari Connor.
And that's the guy that's going up against the clear-cut, no doubt about it, number one wide receiver on the Ravens. I don't love that. So if ever there was a game where you could do the, hey, go ahead and follow, it would be this one. I do think this game will be telling as to what their plan is in that regard.
I bet he doesn't shadow at all this game.
I agree. I think you're probably right.
And I'm not saying it needs to be an every game thing. And I think he would adjust potentially. But if it is just a clear drop off from those guys. Like, I feel all right about, like, for me in the next week's game, like, hell, I don't feel great about Joshua Williams covering T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, like, without no help. So for me, it's just not like, no. I mean, I think those are two borderline number one. I know Jamar Chase is, but two number one receivers. And, he's got to deal with either one of them. And not necessarily saying I'm just going to have him run with Chase. In this one, though, Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar are just, that is clearly a gap and a difference here. And maybe not all the time, but I mean, we can't go in this game and, 70% of the time, 80% of the time, Zay Flowers is on someone not named Trent McDuffie in their passing game. That to me, I don't love.
Yeah, I think it's also just about like how much do they actually respect Zay Flowers, like as a number one wide receiver compared to the other wide receivers on the team. Like, I feel like this is more about in week one. It's like, we had this cornerback 2 camp battle, and it's still kind of up in the air because Jalen Watson was hurt. Yeah, but we like Joshua Williams, and we might have a rotation there. And so I think it's just going to be more about like, let's just put them out there and see what happens. And like, let's get them reps and let's see who makes plays so we can establish our cornerback room a little bit more than it is going to be like, okay, in week one, Zay Flowers, we know is the best wide receiver. Trent McDuffie's got to trail him the entire time. Like, I just don't see them doing that. And then really, too, I think Spags is going to be really concerned with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely because they're both incredible tight ends. And I think both of those tight ends are mismatches for the Chiefs. And so how he decides to play them, I think, could dictate this game more than how they choose to attack the wide receivers.
That's what I was going to say. Like, Zay Flowers plays predominantly in the slot. And that's why I said, hey, throw Shamari Connor to me on Andrews or one of those tight ends. And then you put a guy who has operated as an all-pro in the slot in Trent McDuffie on their best receiver to me. But we'll see how much he does that.
The other thing, Ron, and this goes back to what we said at the very beginning, that is the kind of thing I would expect them to do in the playoffs. And if they think that they're likely to see this team in the postseason, you probably don't want to throw that at them in week one. So now they're ready to prepare for it in the postseason. So that is something that this coaching staff will be considering, because when you have Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be there. And it's a matter of kind of anticipating who the other teams that you could see. The Ravens are probably one of those that they're already expecting they'll be able to see in the postseason.
All right, Serda, give me my music. It is back. It has returned. The game that is clearly sweeping the nation, certified or imposter. Here it is, fellas. Certified or imposter is this statement. If you have just joined Show and BK, we appreciate you joining us. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, Foolish Club Media. The way this game goes, I say a statement. You say that statement is certified or it's imposter. That's how this thing goes. Here is the statement. The most physical running back in that game Thursday night between the Ravens and the Chiefs will be Isaiah Pacheco, the most physical running back. And we know who's on the other side. The most physical running back in this game will be Isaiah Pacheco, certified or imposter. Go ahead, Steve.
This is tough, and I love Isaiah Pacheco this season. I really don't think that Samaje Perine, like if you drafted Isaiah Pacheco in fantasy, everybody's worried now. Like I think Samaje Perine's going to be in the mix, but I don't think it's going to be as crazy as people are making it out to be. Like I think Pacheco is the clear lead back. They just wanted to add some more depth and somebody they knew they could rely on. But in this game, I think I'm going to go with impostor, and it's not even just because of Derrick Henry. It's Pacheco against the Ravens run defense, and I know Pacheco had some big moments in the playoffs, and this Ravens run defense is just spectacular. Like they're the best run defense in football last year. Like it was just impossible to get anything going on the ground against them. And so I just don't see this being like a massive Isaiah Pacheco game in week one. I think the Chiefs want to dust off the passing game and take some shots downfield and try to create some explosive plays. So I just don't know if Isaiah Pacheco is going to have as many opportunities as we think he should in week one.
That's kind of where I'm at. I'm saying it's imposter as well. I think that for all of the things that I can say that are positive about Isaiah Pacheco, and there are many, one thing I am unwilling to do is to say that he's more physical in this game than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is just an all-timer in that regard. If you want to say he finishes like with more yards, I'd be willing to listen to that argument. But more physical runner in this game, I just find that to be hard to believe. Hope to be proven wrong. That'd be a hell of a thing to see in week one of the season. But yeah, I'll take Derrick Henry, and I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I'm going to go freaking certified on this thing. I'll tell you right now. Listen, everybody, he I believe he wants this. I believe he wants Roquan Smith. Right there were times last year when I look at, you remember that touchdown in the end zone? He ran through folks. And I don't believe that the Ravens were all about getting him late in the game. All right, we'll see what kind of step and where Derrick Henry is. But this fool, as we all know, from the start, the opening bell, he is coming in shoulders, knees, everything, and is relentless. And he is going to make himself known. He's as healthy as he will be all season. And I think he sees Derrick Henry on the other side, and he wants to show off. I don't know. Like you said, I agree. I don't think he's going to get the amount of carries that he is. But physicality, I think we walk away from this game and saying, damn, the Chiefs actually had the running back that in the fourth quarter, they didn't want to touch. They didn't want to touch. So I personally, I think he is the most physical runner in the game. Just in terms of physicality and what he did. He clearly, to me, by mid-third quarter, makes teams make business decisions. There's some guys out here like, hey, let him run past me and try to grab him. Like, let me let me go low. So I'm gonna say certified. All right, let's do our predictions. We do it every week. I'll kick this thing off. The Chiefs in Arrowhead. I think the offense in particular has, I think, something to prove. And I do think they want to show that they can score points. And I think they want to show these new toys like Wiley. And I think they want to show what they can do in this game. So I'm looking what? I'm thinking
they want to show off their new toys like Wiley.
I just threw out an example of one.
Wiley's not going to play much till like mid-season.
Okay.
Is he going to get a target? A target
in the end zone.
Noah Grant's for sure getting a target. Jared Wiley's probably going to play like 3 steps.
Listen, you're not going to rob or steal my joy. All right? I know what the kid's about. Again, go check out the Baylor TCU game. If you think I'm wrong. But I got 34-21. 34-21. Wow. I think the Ravens will score a little bit, but I got 34-21 in this game. Chiefs.
I've got them winning 31-27. I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring affair. I think you see some of the early season struggles from this defense. I don't think they're going to become a common occurrence as we get further into the season. I think they will settle in and be a really good unit. But early on, as we mentioned, they've been dealing with a lot of injuries, a lot of guys not really playing in the preseason. So I think they have their struggles. Baltimore's going to be a really good team. Chiefs win 31-27. They cover just a bit, and it goes well over the total in this game.
Yeah, part of me wants to just roll with this is going to be a shootout and Chiefs are going to put up points and the Ravens are going to put up points, but I just don't think that's going to happen. And and maybe I'm still scarred from last season, so I don't want to just be like, oh, the Chiefs offense is back, but I still think this is going to be a fun game with some points, and I think we're going to see flashes from both teams here, but I still think the Chiefs are going to win 27-24.
27-24. All right. All have the Chiefs. Let's see if they can get this thing done. Stay with Foolish Club Media and stay for the post-game show tomorrow as well, right here live on Foolish Club Media. You and Rocky, I assume, Steve, should be
of course.
We'll be there. Fun. There you go. And check out Daily Fix tomorrow, 12 o'clock. We'll get this thing rolling. We are out.